All set over there for starts.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Commission. Thank you for attending. Please know that we want to hear from you. If you're in the audience and you would like to address the commission during public comment for items on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card in the back. And it will be given a turn to speak when you're on. We also have QR codes that you can scan in the back if you want to get access to the packet for tonight's meeting. You're more than welcome to sit back there and scan your phone if you have it handy. When it is your turn to speak, planning staff will call your name. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak to address the commission. Anyone in attendance can speak once per agenda item, and we may just suggest if to save some time, if you hear someone kind of saying things you agree with, you can always piggyback on that, so you concur or something along that. Anyway, let's get going. Let's start with a roll call, please.
Roll call here. Chair Madden.
Here.
Vice Chair Durazo.
Here.
Commissioner Biasotti. Commissioner Harmon.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Kuhn.
Here.
Commissioner Lithine. All commissioners present.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is minutes from the previous planning commission meeting of October 26th, the special meeting. Do we have any commission who would like to suggest changes? If not, so we can move forward without any changes to that agenda or the minutes. Next item is item 5, public comments for items not on the agenda. Is there any comment from the public tonight for items not on the agenda? Okay, sorry. Long day. All right, so we need to approve the minutes, so. Acclamation. Thank you all. Sorry about that. Okay. Item 5 is public comments for items not on the agenda. Does anyone in the audience like to speak? Not seeing any. So we move forward. Next is item 6, announcements of conflicts of interest. Does anyone has conflicts for this project or projects on the agenda? Okay, it appears not. Okay. Moving on to item 7, now we're into the public hearing for item A, 840 San Bruno Avenue West, AR 22-010. Do we have a staff presentation?
Hey, good evening, planning commissioners. This agenda item is the consideration of an architectural review permit for a new multi-family residential project at 840 San Bruno Avenue. The presentation this evening will include the following topics: location, existing conditions, proposed project, state laws, density bonus, and base density, waivers that would be applied to the project, environmental review, findings, and recommendation. The site is located at the northeast corner of Elm Avenue and San Bruno Avenue West. There are commercial uses to the east and south of the site. The site is within the transit corridors plan area. There are regional offices within the Bay Hill specific plan, which I know it's a little hard to see, which surrounds the project site to the north. The nearest neighborhood is located behind the commercial unit fronting San Bruno Avenue to the south. Approximately 130 feet to the north to the south on Elm Avenue, and approximately 180 feet to the south on Linden Avenue. The project site's approximately 1.57 acres. It is zoned transit-oriented development to high-density mixed use. And the site currently consists of a two-story building that was previously used by AT&T. The applicant is proposing to construct a new 10-story multifamily residential project consisting of 341 units that would be in two buildings with a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. 100% of the units provided on the site would be affordable except for managers units. That's allowed by state law. Now I'm going to just walk through the two buildings. Building A is located on the western portion of the site. And this is the second floor level. There's 2 amenity spaces, which are shown in the gold color, 2 outdoor courtyard areas facing San Bruno Avenue. And then levels 3 through 10 of building A are residential units. Building B is located on the eastern portion of the site. This is the second floor, which includes a lobby, mailroom, leasing offices, and various utility rooms, and 2 amenity spaces, which are also shown in the gold color. There is 1 elevated courtyard facing San Bruno Avenue, and levels 3 through 10 are the residential units. This is the ground floor plan, which includes a lobby, mailroom, 341 long-term bicycle parking spaces, and vehicular parking in building A, which is on the left of the screen. The blue arrow denotes the descending ramp to the lower parking area below building B. And this is the same level as the second floor of level B that I just showed you on the right-hand side. A downward sloping ramp extends down from building A parking to building B parking, and there is an exit-only driveway at the eastern end site. This is the conceptual landscaping plan. Landscaping will include trees and shrubs and various surface treatments in the courtyard areas. There are 3 courtyards, 2 in building A, 1 in building B. 2 of the courtyard areas are for gatherings, and 1 is a children's play area. The plan shows the location of the trees as well. 62 of the trees will be 24-inch box size or larger, and there will be 129 additional trees planted primarily along the perimeter of the site, which will provide some visual screening. Renderings of the building. The first one is shown from intersection of El Camino Real and San Bruno Avenue looking up the hill. The second is a view from San Bruno Avenue and Elm Avenue intersection looking down. I'd like to take this opportunity to summarize some of the state laws that apply to the project. The applicant is making use of many state laws as noted in the staff report. First is AB 2097 and Government Code 65915. And these 2 codes essentially state that the city cannot require any parking for new developments located within a half mile of a major transit station. So no parking is required. The applicant will be providing 115 parking spaces. Secondly, the Housing Accountability Act indicates that a local government may not deny, reduce the density of, or make infeasible a housing development that is consistent with objective design standards. SB 330 expedites the permitting process for all housing development and limits the list of application materials that cities can review, and limits the number of public hearings to no more than 5 once the application is deemed complete. State density bonus law allows the developer to exceed the maximum allowable density in the development with the incorporation of affordable units. The amount of the density bonus is on a sliding scale based on the percentage of affordable units. In this case, the developer is seeking an 80% density bonus for 100% affordable projects. It also allows the developer to request concessions and incentives which allow deviations from local standards. A concession may include a reduction in site development standards, modification in zoning code, or design requirements, or other regulatory concessions that increase the project's financial feasibility. The state density bonus law also allows developers to request a waiver or reduction in development standards that would otherwise physically prevent the project from being built at the permitted density. Examples include modifications for area standards, lot coverage standards, setbacks, building height, and other development standards. One very important note that if there is a conflict between state law and local laws and ordinances, state law would take precedence over local laws and ordinances. Since our local transit corridor plan has unlimited density, and because the standards are essentially what would be called form-based, which looks primarily at an overall building envelope, applicants are required to provide a base density study for review by the city, and this is a hypothetical project that complies with all of the municipal code and transit corridor plan standards, including height, setbacks, stepbacks, parking, and open space. But in this case, the base density allowed staff to verify the additional number of units, waivers and concessions for an 80% density bonus in this case. The full set of base density drawings can be found in the staff report and in the plan set. As can be seen in the rendering, the building shows the 5 stories and 15-foot setback above 4th floor along San Bruno Avenue, as specified in the TCP answer. For this particular case, the applicant is proposing that 100% of the units would be provided to lower income households, which equates to an 80% density bonus. The base density for the site would be 190 units. 80% of 190 is 151. Therefore, the number of units allowed would be 341 units. The unit mix for the project is required to be comparable in the base density study to the unit mix in the project. So there are a couple tables in the staff report which demonstrate how the unit mixes between the density bonus study and the project are similar. So as I mentioned previously when I was discussing the laws, the applicant is allowed to ask for various waivers under state density bonus law. So I'm just going to briefly go over each of the waivers that are requested, or they could also be reductions where the applicant is meeting the standard or a portion of the standard, and I'll mention that as well. So the main one is height. So our transit corridor plan allows for 5 stories or 70 feet. And the applicant is proposing 10 stories, 103 feet. State law allows for the addition of up to 33 feet to the existing height limit, which brings it up to 103 feet. If it's 100% affordable, the statute allows for three additional stories by right. So the 9th and 10th stories are also requested as part of the work. And again, those 2 floors represent about 78 units. So basically the city is not allowed to limit the height down to 8 stories because, again, we're not able to approve a project that is less than what the density the density bonus base density study, and then the project allows for under state law. Secondly, building step backs. As I mentioned, and as shown in the previous drawing of the base density project, there's a 15-foot step back that is normally required for transit corridor projects along major thoroughfares. That is one of the requests that the applicant is requesting a waiver from. Next is private open space. The transit-oriented districts specifies that 40 square feet of private and common open space would be required for each residential unit, which represents 13,640 square feet of open space. The project includes 66% of this, 8,973 square feet, primarily in the 3 elevated courtyards along the San Bruno Avenue frontage. So essentially, all of the open space in this case is for use of all of the residents of the building or would be. Next, short-term bicycle parking, and this is one where our municipal code would require 35 short-term bicycle parking spaces, and the applicant is proposing 8 bicycle parking spaces in the central driveway area. And this is just a function of space at the ground level in the common driveway and the area between the buildings. Finally, long-term bike parking. The applicant would be meeting the numerical requirement for 1 long-term bike parking space per unit, 341. However, our code requires that it basically be on the ground clearance between 2 bicycles, which would take up a lot of space and probably reduce the number of parking spaces in the parking garage. So instead, the applicant would be using a stacker, so 2 bicycles stacked above each other in closer proximity than 2 feet within the bike room that's proposed. So there was an extensive environmental review that was done on the project, and it was completed for the project, and it's attached to the staff report. The analysis and appendices constitute about 1,800 pages, 1,884 pages, and it's about 91% of the packet, and most of those are the various reports that are attached. The project was determined to be exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act based on 3 separate exemptions. So the statute allows for the use of exemptions for these types of projects. The primary one being that if you have an existing specific plan, you can use that as your exemption. so the documentation is in the staff report. Basically tracks how the project relates to the specific planning area, or does it trigger any additional impacts, which in this case, there were no additional impacts that were triggered. For meetings and correspondence, the applicant held a Zoom neighborhood meeting at the beginning of the process. The Airport Land Use Commission has reviewed the project and found it to be consistent with the Airport Land Use Plan. The Architecture Review Committee reviewed the project on September 29th and discussed the project topics discussed, including parking, traffic, colors, and aesthetics, and also outdoor open space. Since the packet went out, we've received 2 letters, one which is from the applicant's attorney, and the other is from EMB Law. I am now going to turn the presentation over to Community Development Director Peter Gilley, who is going to go through the findings and recommendation.
Thank you, Michael, and good evening to the Planning Commission. As Michael said, I will conclude with the findings and the recommendation for this item. The findings are on the screen out of the municipal code. I'm not going to read through them all. They're also in the reports on page 18 through 20 of the PDF. So if anybody in the audience wanting to read through them more closely. But the findings are the basis of the decision that the Planning Commission has to make for this application. This is an architectural review permit, therefore most of the findings talk to the issue of design. It's very fair to argue reading those findings literally that there's something that they can't be met. For example, the project does not actually comply with all regulations. But in the context of state law, the project complies with every regulation we're allowed to enforce. Whatever regulations they're not meeting, state law preempts us. Michael walked through what a number of them are. So within the context of state law, staff believes that each of the findings can be met because the project does comply with the regulations we're allowed to enforce. And these type of projects are generally, I would say, frustrating for a city because as a planning commission and the city council, staff members of the public who are involved, the process of setting up these rules went through a number of hearings. The transit corridor plan went through a number of hearings and outreach engagement where the community came to some sort of agreement on what extent of development was going to be acceptable. This project is going above that. State law lets this project go above that, and it's painful to say, but there's nothing that we can do on this project about that. When the state enacted laws allowing a project that's all affordable to have an 80% density bonus, state understood that meant the massing of that project was going to be larger than what was otherwise allowed. You can't put 80% more of something in a box and have it fit in that same box. So the state density bonus effectively allows the project to be taller and more massive than the community would otherwise desired. Then there's the parking regulations, and this is a more recent law that stated that a city cannot require any minimum parking for projects near transit. Again, the state understands that parking is a major issue, but their perspective is that the provision of this housing across the board throughout the state is a greater public good than the city being able to enforce the minimum parking standards, enforce their height limits and such. Local governments generally do not like being told by the state what is the priority and not, but the state does have that authority. So from staff's perspective, we believe the state's perspective is that it'd be a bigger adverse impact not to approve these 341 units than it would be whatever visual massing and parking impact that this project will result in. So that brings us to the recommendation. We do recommend that you approve the project as based on the conditions of approval in your packet. There is an alternative that's noted in the staff report that if the planning commission does want to talk about the exterior, particularly the colors, we are very confident in talking to our legal counsel that you do have the authority to talk about design changes that do not affect the number of units or the size of the building and such. Thus, if there was a condition that you wanted to make about the colors of the building, adding more differentiation and such, that we believe that is in your purview. In the alternatives part of the staff report, we put kind of a starter condition if the planning commission is interested in going that route. The next steps, the planning commission is the final approval body for this project. As with all discretionary actions, there is an appeal process, an appeal period. There is a fee involved, so if there's any member of the public who wishes to appeal this action, please let staff know and we can point you in the right direction. But if the project is approved and the appeal period passes, or if it's acted on, appealed, and eventually approved by council, then the developer will be able to proceed with construction permits and construct the project. So with that, I believe that concludes our presentation, and we're available for any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Commission, I have a question for staff. Sure, comments.
I anticipate there will definitely be, as described, concerns around parking. But I just wanted to preemptively clarify. Should nearby neighborhoods be concerned with parking? It is, I believe, correct that they could pursue a parking permit program to exclude residents of the apartment from their neighborhood. Is that right? So just to make sure that there is not that spillover effect. Sorry about that.
So the city does have a parking program, and so everything that was described is accurate, but I do believe that our authority is limited on who we can deny access to a parking permit. So I'm not certain. We would have to look into whether or not a parking permit program could exclude any particular people. This issue did come up. There's another housing project being built right now, El Camino Real, and it backs onto a neighborhood. And we looked into the parking program issues with that, and there it was determined we could not exclude the people in that apartment complex from being able to get a parking permit. Okay, a program was set up.
And this at least is across a major boundary. We think we can define the neighborhood the way, but maybe the standard having it very represent after all. The constituency boundary in a way. But I would definitely be interested in the answer to that. I also wondered whether, given the smaller number of spaces relative to units, whether spaces are being assigned particular units for rent or are unbundled. We have a program in our transit plan to encourage full unbundling for the spaces are rented separately, which also encourage rental of the units by large families.
I think that's a question for the applicant to respond to. Okay.
I also wanted a clarification. Or by parking is that included in the same room. Sort of like separate sort of their bike area alongside. Like,
The port spaces are located for the co-share. There's actually, I'm sorry, there's actually 8. They updated the plans that were to fit 8 in that.
these are under where?
Okay.
Oh, right here. I see
The
those
sidewalk.
no markings right now. I got the last, but I had names, more, well. Okay, so this came to us in the ERC, and I had a number of questions for staff, Michael, not all of them were answered yet. So I'm gonna start with, first the easy one. And I'm gonna repeat a lot of what you said at the podium, so I'll just ask you. So what they're asking for, right now, they're limited. By right, they can build 5 stories. The state law says with the 80% density bonus, they can go an additional 3 stories. Right, and so that 8 stories applies, right? Now that additional 2 stories, you were telling us that this is considered a waiver that we must give, or a concession that we must give on top of that. And so the state law is essentially saying that there is no height limit and there is no storage limit, so long as they can meet the 8% density bonus.
Let me take that question. I think you closed your question with the answer. The limit to how much they can push our regulations is tied to what they need in order to achieve that 80% bonus. And that goes back to the base density study showing how many units they can fit into our heights, our step backs, how many units they can fit, meeting all our rules. Then they get to do 80% on top of that. And then as long as they show that their relative size and proportion of bedroom counts are the same, unless we can finding an adverse impact for health and safety, we basically have to grant the waivers to allow them to do that 80%.
And part of the question I had too was for you guys to check that. So this information is coming from the city's attorney, is that correct? The city's attorney, not just planning staff and not the applicant, but city's attorney back to them.
Yes, we've, this project has been in process for over a year, with extensive oversight by our city attorney's office. The other part of the statute I need to mention is that the statute says you're allowed 3 stories, or 33 feet. So what they're doing here, they is adding the 33 feet to our 70-foot height limit. So, there is a cap at 103 feet. So it's 102.6 inches. There is a condition that is in your conditions of approval that requires basically a height survey after framing to verify that they are staying under that height limit.
And that's an average height limit. That's not the greatest height at any given point, right?
Right. There's a definition of how we calculate height in our code, and it is a kind of a little bit convoluted, but it is an average because the site is sloping. So that was reviewed extensively by our senior planner with the architect before we allowed them to proceed.
And what's the highest height for record, Michael?
I'm sorry, when you say wells.
So that the average is going to be under the limit 102. And I know this isn't, we can't approve or disapprove based on this, but what's the highest height?
After your questions to staff, we do have the architect who is going to be doing a presentation as well, and could probably answer that. I believe there is in the plan set a height verification diagram that he may be able to pull up.
My other question, I think this one's harder, is the base study, I thought there was an issue with. So I understand, you know, the law is based on the base study, as long as the base study is good, really, there's no question. We must approve, we don't have an option. This is weird, right, because they proposed a project that is 3 levels of underground parking. It's not really apples to apples. First of all, that project is infeasible. It would never. It's like, it's baloney, right? And the second part, it's not an apples to apples. They're not building the underground, so. This is an open-ended thing, but what's going on? Help me understand that this is really applicable and it's not just a legal loophole that we're gonna have to close, right?
Right, the base density study, they complied with the requirements of the base density study and were able to, you know, verify how they met all of our codes, even though, you know, we recognize that we may not have that much underground parking. Whether, you know, you include underground parking with the state laws that, you know, don't require the parking, we still require it as part of the base density study. To show that it is feasible to go on the site somehow.
What do you mean by feasible?
Well, physically feasible, right? Not financially feasible. As you mentioned, it's probably not.
Are you sure? Are you sure that the test is physically feasible and not financial? And what if there's bedrock in it? 1 foot, right? Is that? So are we just going in an open box?
So I understand.
It's hard to, yeah, and we're in legally, it's very, so I want to be airtight. Seems like we're gonna have to pass it, this needs to be airtight.
So, it's whether it's physically feasible, right? They're required to establish the envelope. Building and the parking applies with all our codes. Which they've done, so they've satisfied the requirement to create the physical form that established the 190 units.
And financially feasible. This has been asked of our attorney, this does not matter.
And so, yes, and so the city attorney was involved in this, and I believe even HCD consultation, that's the State Department of Housing and Community Development, was part of conversations about the base density study and concurred it was appropriately done. So from the issue of financial feasibility, I would say 1 level of underground parking right now, which is why projects don't get built. So we can't base anything necessarily on financial feasibility because it changes so much with labor, materials, and costs and such. So it is based on whether it can physically fit. It is fair to say that if you meet bedrock at some point, the costs skyrocket to the point where it's even more infeasible. But the point of the base density study is what density, what number of units could fit on the site. And we believe the applicant has met all the requirements of that. The city attorney's office has reviewed it and made the same conclusion.
And then the question, so the feasibility that we've answered that just now, and the question that could be more like a similar project. I mean, the base study, it has to be of a similar nature, right? For example, if they had in their base study design only studios, they would have had more units and then would have it, you know, in the 80% density, but there would have been only, right? But if there is some past stuff that is similar, what's that? How did we meet that? Especially considering the underground, 3 levels of underground.
Yeah, it's the unit makeup, and as you noted, if they come in with a base density study and show they could fit 1,000 tiny studios, and then they propose all 3-bedroom units, 80% more than 1,000, that
That would not pass the test.
yeah, that's absolutely in the wrong direction.
That would be a case for denial.
That would be a case for not accepting, that the density bonus number that they're asking for is more feasible. Because the unit breakdown, the proportion of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom, percentage points of each other, and the square footages of them, in the base, and then the project are, also extremely close. We considered it equivalent, and as noted, that's planning staff, that's the city attorney's office, and as I said, HCD.
So again, on that, where's that test as it relates to the 3 levels of the apartment? Where's that test of a similar project? How is that? To me, in my perspective, I see 3 levels of underground parking. I see 5 levels above. I see a 3-story over podium over stick. Very different project. It's not of similar nature. What's the test that you taken?
So we don't see, and we didn't hear anything from HCD or our attorney's office that gave us any impression to focus on the parking, because it's a base density study of unit counts and basically above ground, and so that is the approach I was taking, and all parties accepted that it was done appropriately.
Okay, so that I'm kind of hearing that there was no consideration for the underground park in terms of looking for a similarity factor. It's only purely based on unit counts and size.
We looked at the unit counts, unit proportion, and then the unit sizes of each unit type were also some.
All right, thank you.
Did want to clarify on the increase for the age of 10, is it basically like, it seems like hypothetically you could fit this number of units in stories, essentially if you move away the courtyards, right, and sort of get a solid block, which depending on your taste might be, less attractive or whatever. But the issue is the original design, the base density study has a certain amount of sort of like light and air access, and that in order to create a footprint and get that same sort of style of units, but to the higher number, it becomes infeasible without the extra upper stories, but more or less.
There is no requirement that they be architectural some the base density, all of the required 48%, 40 square feet per unit for the 190 units had all of the open space either in the ground level, and that one did some balconies, so it did meet all of the open space requirements. So with the density bonus, the project, there is a waiver for essentially 34% of that open space. So again, saying that's what's needed to make the project feasible.
And I guess it seems like hypothetically, if you imagine the units as sort of Lego blocks that you could take use them to fill in essentially the courtyard. It seems like that might basically asking like, was there a conclusion that would in that to stay under the 8 limit, the 8-story limit, create other
Now, I can't speak for the applicant, but they obviously were trying to design a project that still meets objectives, including open space, not only for the residents that they're going to live there, but they're also going to be holding the project from what they tell us, as an investment. So they're also looking at livability from their standpoint as well.
Question about the height. I believe you said it's 100. Is that to the top of the parapet, the roof deck, mechanical screens, mechanical units? What is the
The highest, whatever the highest element is, so it does have a parapet and it has a roof well, so the mechanical functions will be below the parapet. It's my understanding, again, the architect could clarify that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from the renders.
Yeah, you didn't hear me. I said it's hard from the renders to tell if there is anything on the roof. Or if there's a parapet or if there's a roof screen. So just want to make sure that height limit, given that we're doing 10 floors, pretty tough to go less than 9 foot of floor, all of the art concrete. Okay, thank you. Final questions from the commission. Okay, there's a presentation from the architect.
So we did get a request, so the architect will be presenting via Zoom. I'm not sure what other applicant representatives would be presenting via Zoom, or if it's just Keith, we can probably. Okay, yeah, and we promoted Jennifer, I'm not sure. Would, allow whoever's going to present first to whatever you have in mind to do that.
Thank you. This is Jennifer Johnson. I believe Keith Lavis will just take it from here. And we're all here to help answer questions as well.
Sorry, Jennifer, 1 second. Jennifer, you could go ahead again.
Oh, thank you. No, I was just saying that at this point, we're just going to have Keith Lavis take it from here. And we're also here to help answer questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Sorry, 1 second.
I can.
Sorry, can everyone hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good evening, commissioners. I'd like to just start off here by I'm sorry. I'd like to start off by showing you a quick video so you can get a sense of how the proposed project sits on the site and how it relates to the street level along San Bruno.
Yeah.
So here we go. There we go. As we approach the southeast corner of the project along San Bruno, you can see how the building relates to the streetscape here. We can see the first level, which is parking, and the residential units above and open space above. With a significant grade change as San Bruno climbs to the west, we see the first level disappear as we approach the middle of the site, where there's a break between the two buildings. This is the main entry to the project. Continuing west, we start the process again and see the base of the west building as it begins to dive into the hill. There are 3 large courtyards in the project for residents, and you can see how each of them relate to the building and the street frontage. We continue west, until we get all the way to the intersection of San Bruno and Elm, at which point the base of the building is completely buried and only residential units are seen. You can also see from this angle how the building massing steps back down the hill to the east. And here you see what the project may look like at dusk. So how did we get here? There were 3 main factors that influenced the design of the project. First, there's the grade change along San Bruno, which drops over 30 feet from west to east. And as you can see in this image, the slope varies and is more gradual at the west end and gets steeper as it moves east. This slope is dictated where we would break and step down the buildings and where the vehicular and pedestrian entry points would be. Next, there is solar orientation. San Bruno Avenue is the south side of the site. That's where we wanted our open space to maximize sunlight for our open space and residents. This also gives us the opportunity to utilize those courtyards as sort of a visual extension of the streetscape, making the pedestrian and driving experience along San Bruno feel more green and more open. And then last, but probably most important, is neighborhood context. As there's the office park to the north and residential development to the south, we set most of the building massing to the north side of the site to soften the San Bruno facade and provide as much movement in the building massing as possible. Now I'd like to just walk you around the project quickly to show the massing from a few different angles. So here we see the project looking west from the corner of El Camino Real and San Bruno. Again, you can see how the building steps down the street grade and how the facade along San Bruno is broken up. Next is this view from El Camino Real, which shows how we've pushed the majority of the mass of the building to the north side of the site, as we previously described. And here we see a view looking southeast along Elm at the back of the project, again showing the bulk of the massing facing north toward the office park. And then finally we here, again, back at the corner of Elm and San Bruno, where again, you can see how we've opened up the facade along San Bruno to break up the massing. Now I'd like to focus in on the entry to the project, which is located at the break between the two buildings here along San Bruno. This is where both the vehicular and pedestrian entries to the buildings are located, as well as the leasing offices and access to resident amenities. Looking at this same area from this angle and as a night scene, you can see how the building base transitions from a submerged parking area to this light, open, and transparent space, which is the focal point of the project. We've treated this area with commercial storefront, accent lighting, and projected architectural features to make it as open and as inviting as possible to help activate the street scene. One more view zoomed in on the first floor of the west building. Here you can see the pedestrian entry lobby, as well as the entry into the parking structure. This is where all cars will enter for both buildings, with an underground connection from the west building to the east building. Also here you see the hotel-like porte-cochere, which serves as a turnaround for vehicles, as well as a pickup and drop-off area for ride services like Uber and Lyft. The project's secure bike storage room is also located in this area behind the feature wall at the porte-cochere. And next, I'd like to turn over to the landscape architect, Mark Schadinger, to describe some of the amenities. But before I do that, I just wanted to clarify and reiterate that as you're looking at this plan, the lighter color yellow is are the residential units, and the gold color are the residential leasing and amenity areas. And because of the slope on the site, while it's drawn as if it's one level, building A, amenity and courtyards are actually one level above building B. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mark to describe the amenities. And Mark, let me know when you'd like me to go to the next slide.
Okay, thank you, Keith, and good evening, commissioners. My name is Mark Schadinger with MGS Landscape Architecture, and I'm pleased to present the landscape amenities for this project and the residents. As you can see in the overall site illustrative, we have a ring of green landscaping that surrounds the entire two buildings. We've notched out the parking in the two buildings to accommodate the transformers. So we have adequate space to screen those transformers. And we're proposing to attach vines anywhere where there is either a blank wall or grill work to the parking structure exposed to San Bruno Avenue. So we feel like we have adequate landscape area along San Bruno Ave, and we're also proposing new street trees as well. Next slide, Keith. So this is the building A, and this has two courtyards. We put the tot lot to the east because it's more centrally located for the residents who live in Building B, which is to the east of this project, east of Building A. And it's got great solar orientation. The more westerly courtyard is meant for socializing. It's sitting on soft furniture, outdoor dining. We have this amenity room, which will provide a lot of the amenities so they don't have to go back to their residence to do anything. And we've got a couple barbecues. These courtyards are large by industry standards. They're 60 feet wide by about 45 feet deep. So both of these are about the same size. Let's go to the next one, Keith. And this is an image of looking from a bird's eye above San Bruno Avenue of the socialized courtyard. And we do plan on getting some sizable trees on the courtyards. And then we have an image of the tot lot courtyard and more outdoor furniture for parents to sit and supervise their children. Let's go to the next slide. And then this is the Building B courtyard. This one's even larger than the other two. This one's 87 feet wide. And then it has this about the same depth, 45 feet deep from the street. So this one's quite large. And this is really our multi-purpose area. We envision on this synthetic turf here, movie nights, the property manager can program some events for them in the evenings. So this is a much more flexible space for the residents. And once again, great furniture. And we're going to show you on the next slide here. And here's a bird's eye from San Bruno Avenue looking into the courtyard. And then this is looking through. So you can see how large these courtyards are. And we really like the southern exposure for the afternoon sun, even in the summertime here in San Bruno. And then this one, we wanted to convey the quality of materials, not only in the furniture, but the size of the plant material, the materials we're using on the ground, the block around the perimeter wall, the paving. We're doing built-in electric barbecues and really fun play equipment for the children. Just nice movable furniture that the residents can enjoy. There you go, Keith.
Thank you, Mark. So that's our presentation. And I don't know, Jennifer, did you have anything to add?
Thank you. No, it's terrific.
Thank you. So I guess we'll turn it back to the commission then. And we're here to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Batteries will in this night, so if I cut out. Architecturally, the vendors, I don't see anything on the roof. What is your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing demands for this building, and where will those equipment be located?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. I think you were asking about the mechanical equipment. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't see anything.
It will be located on the roof.
Okay, and so you're gonna have several large air handlers of, usually they're boxcar size. Has that been factored into the height limit?
Yes.
Okay, and so the corner, I believe it's building B, closest to El Camino, from ground floor to the roof deck. It's not.
The overall height of the building is measured per the city standards is that 103 feet. It's less at the call it the top, the high end of the slope, and more at the low end, but it's all the same height, flat across the top. So I believe it's about from the very lowest point to that top is approximately 111. But the 103 is measured from the average of the four corners of each building.
So it's on this building. What
what are we looking at? Are we looking at a 60-foot by 12-foot by 10-foot tall air handlers, several of them behind a roof screen? Or are we looking at small units spread all over the place?
Smaller units.
Okay, and will these units be air conditioned or just heated?
Air conditioned.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Your typical story height on this building, what are you going with?
It's in the, floor to floor in that 9.5 to 10 foot range. The exact height will be decided as we develop the drawings further.
Story. So the stories, which is the floor, and again, the way we calculate the definition is from pick the median, strike a line. Again, just trying to understand the composition of the building. Is this post tension concrete? We can't hear you if you're speaking, by the way.
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you repeat it? You're breaking up.
yeah, I'm asking what's the building composed of structurally for the floors? Is this post tension concrete, regular concrete?
Concrete slab.
No post tensioning.
I don't know. We haven't engineered it yet.
Okay, that might be pretty challenging given these floor heights if you're not doing post tensioning, considering the floor requirements. The exterior walls, are they exposed concrete or stucco?
Stucco.
Okay, including those walls we're seeing between the double height windows, there's those solid bands vertically. Those are also stucco. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Were shadow studies performed on this? I know.
Mr. Chair, if I could interject, you asked a question and I just want to make sure, to get the accurate response. You asked about the horizontal, sections between the floors that are in the darker gray.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to figure out is the story heights and the ceiling heights based on what kind of construction they're gonna have to make sure that we are gonna fit under the height.
Yeah, the applicant, the architect said that was gonna be concrete. I just want to note the plans say it's a hard surface panel siding on those horizontal dark grays. I just wanted to clarify that one.
Okay, so no upturned beams or anything like that are proposed to create those bands? Or a decorative element? What you're saying?
I believe so.
Okay, okay. Okay, were any shadow studies performed on this, and, should there be? Yeah, there was a shadow study done, again, because it faces south, any shadows would fall, towards the, commercial property, which is not a sensitive, use. Okay, thank you. And just a general question, will pets be allowed in this, for long, found out pets, and is that been built into the design of the courtyards?
I'm not sure. That's a question for or the ownership.
So I don't know.
Meet the designate? Yeah, so what is your response to that? It hasn't been determined yet? You Not planning on doing that, or just trying to understand what the coordinates are gonna be? You have a lot of people in here. And, if they don't allow pets, where do they all go to the bathroom on a cold day or rainy day or whatnot?
I don't know that. Mark Shattinger, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, hello, this is Mark with MGS. We are not accommodating pets right now in the 3 courtyards. It's very, very difficult, like you mentioned, with this population to control odors. So we do not have a dog park per se in this property yet.
That's all questions are for now.
This is a question I have for staff. In previous projects, we received lots of details which eliminated us having to ask questions, sort of guess about things, and finding myself, this question that was raised, but here's that there are so many things to this project, and I know that study are done on this, but based on the questions that are coming up, it doesn't appear that we received a lot of information. And so, for example, we made major changes to some of the other projects based on design. This design has a very definite sort of way it says buildings, business concepts. So, is it a done deal? It's architectural. Is it a done deal? Because remembering those part, we had such a hand in making it much more conducive to the community and to our neighbors. And I know that this is not saturated with neighbors, but there are neighbors there. So I'm just trying to figure out where are we in this process. How done of a deal is it design and other things, just not even able to see where the person comes out of there. And we typically get a whole project designs, and it allows us to do our work, more studied, research behind the scenes, so that we can intelligent evidence that would be a sure decision.
So everything this project represents the future, and this part of what you need is, unless state law changes that, is the reason we have many of these state laws now. As noted in the presentation, I think that the commission could require changes to the skin, as in the color and pasta materials, so long as they're not costly. Beyond that, unless we have an objective standard, there's not much we can do. And even with the objective standards, the applicant can use the density bonus waivers. So really, this is, I think, from the applicant's standpoint, who has done more of these projects under recent state laws, I think they think there's an incredible amount of detail in here. The ability for the city to sculpt these projects to meet the community's interests is unfortunately not going to be possible.
It takes my breath away. It takes my breath away actually to think about that. I recognize state law. We have to expect this. That's what it is. Like it, but it takes a breath. There's no hand in it. Anything more. Of course, the commission that it meets all the expectations, but we rely on staff to get such direction and ways.
If that way, this project would look like this.
I believe that.
But the state law, and I don't know, the state law housing being built as a bigger issue than the local concerns about making things fit.
Yes. And my concern is that when you see a building, patches, long, lines, not from the, it becomes very,
Sterile.
well, it's sterile. I really wanted to say tourism. We know that's not a very appropriate comment, but it really did. Where is the shrubiness? You can make everything look good from the outside, but imagine inside. Think about children and families trying to interact and have noise levels and hallways running into each other. I mean, those are the things that we don't get to see. You know, what doesn't look like. Anyway, thank you.
Great, yeah, I have a couple of questions for the applicant, and I guess this is directed towards Keith then, because this is here. So in that ART, there was a couple of requests that we had, and I'm gonna go off memory, sorry, so if I forget any, please, ART members, jump in. The first one was, color. So Keith, you know, we asked for some color variation or something. Can you speak to that? Was there any discussion with your team and your answer?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question was, or the suggestion that was made was to maybe provide some variation between the two buildings, if I'm correct. And we discussed it with our client, discussed it internally, and didn't really feel it was appropriate to make just very subtle changes. Because it is one project and the two buildings do work together. Also felt that trying to put too much color or contrast into buildings of this scale would make them feel larger. They're meant, you know, with this color scheme to be very subtle and feel more like a backdrop to the street scene. So that's why we're proposing this scheme that we are.
So you said adding color variation, particularly make.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you breaking up there.
You said color variation around the banding might make the project look larger.
Not necessarily around the banding, just in general, adding, you know, contrasting colors to the building.
Another one I had asked for was to open up one of the courtyards for public use. Can you speak to that?
I can't. I mean, that's not my place to speak. But I don't even know if it would be possible because they're above the height of the sidewalk. So there's an issue of accessibility there as well. But I don't think that would be something our client would want to do anyway.
It's not discussed with you internal cases that you haven't done studies for that. Too bad. I think that would have been really complicated to get back to the city. Actually, and then when we don't have the traffic consultant, do we?
Actually, we do. Okay. I guess that is what we now or it's entirely up to you with the consultants.
So, and I'm just looking, I read through, one of the questions that we had was traffic consultant, the applicant, I guess, to prepare a study of what they felt would be the realistic number of cars parked, right? And the assumption that, you know, I personally went in with was that's less than what we typically require. I didn't see that in there. That wasn't done. Unless they provide something else, I'm going to assume, based on what they provided, that they're only providing 17% of what is required. If you do the math, that means they are underparked by 561 parking spaces. That's 561 parking spaces we'll have to mitigate. And that gets passed on to you, Michael and Peter. As a city, we have to figure out a solution so that it doesn't impact your neighbors.
It's just the choice of wording is important. There is 0 required parking and we are getting on Route 15.
Okay, here's the math that
We
I'll.
would have gotten more. In prior years.
Right, so, and I'm not saying required, I'm saying, realistically, what is needed, right? And so I know that's different than, what's required just in our, support. We have a certain amount. In their study, they said that they provided 17% of what's in the TCP. So lacking other information, I'll then assume that they're only providing 17% of what's realistically going to be needed for all of the residents in the building, which results, the math results in 561 spaces. 561 cars on the streets.
This is Jennifer Johnson. I can perhaps give some input here, if you like. First of all, I would just want to mention that all of the architectural review questions that came up in the prior meeting that were just discussed have been answered in written format to the staff. So just want to make sure that everybody's aware that those answers have been provided. And perhaps if staff wants to speak to that or react to that, that's a possibility. With respect to parking and the recognition that there's no parking needed for the project, what we're working with here is exactly what transit-oriented development envisioned, that people would seek to use more transit and perhaps not have a car. The expense of maintaining and insuring a vehicle is out of reach for a lot of people. And by being able to live near transit, this is the policy direction that we're seeking to honor. But by providing the spaces that are there for parking is a recognition that not everybody can or wants to be without a car, and so there are those spaces provided.
I'm sorry, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Jennifer Johnson with Canyon Snow Consulting, part of the project team.
Okay, thank you for that response. I'll say that there is a realistic number. We asked for the applicant to prepare a study on what they realistically think will be part of that. Since they did not do that, I'll have to put on the record that the math just points out 561 spaces under parked. I'll still ask the applicant to come back, prepare something to help us, mitigate any impacts, so that we know what we're getting into. That's all. I know it's not going to impact our decision here, but we need to know what we're getting into so that we can mitigate any impacts. That's all.
I had been asking about parking earlier. I was curious whether there was an intent to unbundle the parking, because that does support the goal of getting a lower, more parking light clientele.
Oh, sure. Did I answer the question?
I mean, if the answer is we don't know yet, that's, an answer.
Can the applicant answer that question? Whether the parking is unbundled?
I'm sorry, if that was a question, I just did not hear it. It's just not clear.
The question was, is there an intent to unbundle the parking, rent it separately? Because we have a program in our transit corridor plan to support that in the interest of incentivizing on the clientele.
Thank you. I don't believe so.
That's interesting, given that the number of spaces is lower than the number of units, so that we're going to tie the spaces to specific units.
I'd like to just refer you again to the memo that we responded to all of the questions from the Architectural Review Committee. And perhaps if staff would like to refer to any of those, that might be a good way to proceed.
That question was not asked at the Architectural Review Committee. It would have been.
My apologies. I think this was in a memo.
Information. Very happy, you know, what are in the transport, you know, there's something two faces per unit number that you're thinking of. I know in Mill Park, there was an actual study of carbon ownership in comparable transit development in Oregon, like 0.78. So I think, to be fair to the applicant on this, like, it's something is realistic. I agree. I did hear also if there was any interest in pursuing car share service. Also, if you take some of the spaces and do projects well done with reducing residents in lieu.
I'm sorry, I have to say the sound has been absolutely difficult to hear what you've just said. I do know we do not have unbundled parking in the project. I'm not sure if you've moved to a new topic.
I was asking whether there was any in your sort of project management, whether there's any, whether you've been reaching out to any car share services like your Zipcar or similar, reduce the need for parking.
No, but you're right. Those are good methods.
Is that something that the management may consider as the project goes forward?
I think it's a great suggestion.
Great, wonderful. And then my last question, unrelated. I know some of the state laws around sort of incentivizing construction of affordable housing units have labor standards built in. It wasn't clear to me whether this was hitting any of those, but I was curious whether we have like a project labor agreement or any kind of labor standards applied to this. And you know, it's fine. I just it's sort of standing project. I'm getting a shake of the head from I think the answer is no.
No, the project does not trigger PLA. And we accept bids from all subcontractors.
Okay, I think we would open the floor to public comments, so staff, if you would announce the speaker. Or you have this.
The first speaker that we have is GM Sam. You will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi everyone. Is this on?
No.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm here on behalf of Housing Choices, a nonprofit that helps people with developmental disabilities find and obtain housing. I'm here not just as an advocate for the affordable housing project in San Bruno, but also as a champion of inclusivity, compassion, and social responsibility. I recently had a conversation with one of my clients who is a developmental disability, and he shared something that was really quite genius and even different about housing. He said that we support housing not just because it's affordable, because it is fair. The process of the affordable housing considers your household income, your household size, and compares it to the area median income, then calculates, the rent that you need to pay. So it's not just like giving away cheap deals, it's about offering equitable opportunities and leveraging our workforce. And this client of ours, he holds down like 3 jobs in San Mateo County. He knows what it's like to work hard and to just for you to live independently as someone with a disability and to just afford a safe place to sleep. People with disabilities have a hard time finding accessible housing, and most of them don't drive due to mobility issues. So if parking is an issue, set aside units for LGT, spread wheels, allocating units within housing projects near public transportation for these individuals, which is this gap, and then offers support and resources they need. Please support the affordable housing project at San Bruno and the inclusion of IDD set-aside units. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker we have is Gabby Brett.
Hi, my name is Gabby, and I'm currently living on my own in one bedroom apartment in San Bruno. Living independently is important to me. It took me a long time to find an apartment due to money. To get my own apartment, I had to save up and now I have a Section 8 voucher and other income. It's important they help people with disability to get low income apartments. And I think it's really important that we find low income for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mia.
Hi, my name is Mia Clapham. I'm a resident over here in Mills Park. I'm here to throw my full support for 840 San Bruno Ave. I think this is a fantastic project. This is a way to give 341 families a roof over their head here in San Bruno. That helps keep our residents here in San Bruno who may be displaced otherwise. And it also welcomes new neighbors into our community. I also love the fact that it's transit oriented. We live near the BART, we have Caltrain, we have Samtrans, they're right on ECR. Sorry, a bit nervous. And so that gives people so many options. I own a car and I barely use it, to be perfectly honest, and I could get around just fine without it. So I think a lot of the concerns around parking are a bit unfounded. But at the end of the day, we're talking about homes for people. It doesn't matter, like, if I need a home, I don't really care if I have to walk down a long hallway. I don't really care if the building's all white. I just need a home with a roof that's safe and warm for me to go home to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Doug Hood.
Good evening, planning commissioners and others here. My name is Doug Hood and we're the owners of 801 851 Traeger. And I'll tell you what, this transit corridor plan is a lot more lenient than the Bay Hill specific plan. And there's requirements that, we spent, I don't know, 5-6 years with Google and YouTube to get that project underway. And it's just amazing how, is this going to affect the Bay Hill specific plan and the density requirements, the state density bonus programs, so be able to use those. There's also housing requirements that was approved by this specific plan. And are we going to be able to get the same bonus densities as this group? We're at, 3 levels. They're at 5 + 3 + 2, right? So, and if you look at the street scene, you're gonna have 10 stories, right, to buildings that are, 2 stories, 1 story. Then you have, the Google complex, and then you have, lower density. So I think there's gotta be uniformity across the board, right? The underground parking, huge study over there at the Bay Hill specific plan. There's a lot of water table. There's gonna be a lot of water. You're going down 3 stories parking. Just to let you guys know, but you probably haven't done your studies, or you haven't, but you should. Yeah, that's all. It's, you're not even there. I mean, looking at these questions and trying to figure out, what you're gonna put in place there. You don't even have a building and an engineer and the construction, you don't even know what you're putting in there yet. But I think it's great. I mean, it looks beautiful. I mean, if you guys go 10 stories, that's beautiful. And I hope once you go 10 stories for those, I hope you then look at the Bay Hill specific plan that we also can go 10 stories. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jody Young.
Good evening, Commissioners. And everybody else who's here. So a couple things that I have. Last few years, besides this last one, we've had some water issues, water rationing. Now you're adding 341 families to that water. We are on well water in San Bruno. Have you thought of any way to fix this? Any way to solve that problem going forward? Parking, yes, an issue. I live on Elm. We already have issues with parking, people coming all the time on the street. Height, definitely an issue. And speaking of height, has anybody done a study on earthquake retrofitting this 10-story building? The gentleman that spoke just before me spoke about water underground. The entire city of San Bruno is laden with springs everywhere. So don't know if anybody's done any studies on that. You go down, you put in footings for a 10-story building. I don't know how deep you have to go. I'm not a construction person, but I have a feeling that you're going to be running into some issues. The retrofitting for a 7-story building, I'm sure for earthquake is a lot greater than, or a lot less than the retrofitting. And we just had a nice little shaker the other day centered underneath the San Francisco airport. So just thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. You want to speak further on this one?
Just to respond to some of the text questions, either of staff or developer. With the percent affordable housing, will there be any inclusion, a dedicated inclusion for people with disabilities? And I'm not certain what IDD is, but I'm curious to know if there will be inclusion for IDD, and how is that managed? And will there be any building differences that will physically accommodate the space for people who need it outside of the ADA?
That would be a question for the applicant.
If the applicant
Thank you.
can answer that.
Yes, the project absolutely meets all requirements for ADA. I'm not sure if we have a more specific architectural answer to that.
I can answer that, Jennifer. Yeah, I mean, there are requirements with the financing. There will be 15% of the units will be mobility units under the building code, which provide enhanced accessibility, and the rest of the units will be adaptable.
Great, thank you. And also, will there be units specifically made available for people with disabilities?
If you're talking about physical disabilities, those mobility units would be the accessible units. Outside of that, it's not planned for anything specific outside of that.
But maybe not a physical disability, but maybe an intellectual disability. Will people with disabilities be
in housing program.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Could you repeat that?
Will the units be rented preferentially to anybody with disabilities?
That's a management question. I don't believe there's any preference given to them. It's open, the project would be open to anyone that qualifies.
Yeah, love that considered, but thank you.
I can form a little bit to some of the comments. I'm a structural engineer. Ma'am, your question about the earthquake retrofitting and whatnot, this is a brand new building, so there's no retrofit. I'm sure it will be diligently checked by the city staff and land check agencies. I don't believe there's 3 stories of underground parking, correct? There's really just the base density study had that, but this project does not. It has, I believe, just 1 partial level of low-grade parking. There will be a geotechnical report that will tell them what kind of foundation to use, where the water table is, things like that will all be standard practice as part of the design of the building. That doesn't mean they'll be perfect or there won't be issues, but they'll have to do all the proper studies if they haven't done so already. So I just want to make some comments about that, so.
Yeah, the base density study, which was used to establish like the before the density bonus unit calculation, it's a thing that is theoretically physically possible, that you could excavate that and pump out the water, but like nobody would, like it would not be financially sensible. Just as a point of information, staff, I don't think it's accurate that the Stanford water supply exclusively comes from the groundwater supply and Chatty water, which is continuously replenishing our supply. And I think in terms of the long-term politics of that, I remember discussing this with a former council member some years back, that San Bruno is actually quite well positioned for water supply relative to most cities in the Bay Area, because we have a deal with the SFPUC where essentially we're accumulating credits that are and so as long as the Bay Area as a whole has waters and it's quite secure water, my understanding. I was pulling up the numbers from our projected demand with growth was like 3,900 acre feet a year, and projected supply was 4,400. Yeah, and as far as the density bonus laws and whatnot, you know, talk to a land use lawyer, sir. I mean, these are state laws. I'm sure they apply to you. We're not going to get into the details of that here, but that's what land use lawyers are for.
Yeah, I just think your comment about building and giving it or I believe because this is residential specific and you know, that's how they're so tall here. So I'm sure thinking of something along those lines. No, there may not be apples to apples.
There are a few sites in that specific plan that you could put multi-family sites on that, in the plan itself. So that's what I was talking.
And it probably does apply, but you have to talk to a lawyer.
That's right. And the height level was 3 stories or 54, 50 feet.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Typically on a stick frame, you can go 5 stories over podium.
Right.
And I believe our tallest current building in the city is the Walmart building, which is also up on a hill. I think that's 7 stories, if I remember correctly. Yeah, for residential, when they have to go this tall, it has to be, they really have 3 options, but concrete is the main one. Almost timber is all now an option, but they would probably lose a story if they did that, although it would look much nicer. Steel really doesn't pencil out well for residential work. So, but I was asking questions about concrete type.
Yeah, we proposed 341 spaces. In our own study, and financially.
Chair, can we, move on? This is,
Financially, I wouldn't work.
we're not discussing your project, let's,
Yes.
keep it moving if we can. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Any other questions from the commission?
If I may, Chair, David Blackwell, and I am a land use lawyer, and I was actually the land use lawyer on behalf of you two on the Bay Hill specific plan, and you're correct, it's apples and oranges, that it's not relevant to this conversation. And the residential, there's no residential that's required on Bay Hill, there's a couple overlays, so. But I'm here to answer any questions. I do a lot of work with the state density bonus law and with the Housing Accountability Act, and I think, you make some good points on how this really does work and how it doesn't work. The only thing I wanted to add was I didn't realize there was an alternative recommended by staff, or not recommended by staff, but is proposed. And my concern about that is that what it does is it basically injects subjectivity back into this process where it doesn't belong, where it says that, we're required to continue to confer with staff about, further design changes. And then it's up to the community development director to approve that or not. So by the way that's structured, that does bring subjective criteria back into this and could stop the project if the director believes that we didn't do enough to work with staff on further subjective design standards. And just practically speaking, and it doesn't seem to be recognized in the record here, but there has been a lot of dialogue back and forth between the developer and staff with regard to the subjective things that the ARC requested. And we played that string out and we're done with that. And so to say, well, let's go back and talk some more, it's really not, it's pointless, to be honest with you. And it's also, in my view, it's not condoned by the law. So I'm here for any questions, but otherwise that's all I had to say.
If the commission is interested in changes, there are a variety of options. You can directly say, make this change. If the idea of working with staff is not attractive, you can continue and come back again, and then you make the change, and then you can weigh in. We put forth the alternative that we thought would be actually in the applicant's best interest. But if you think the color and skin is in its current state can be approved without changes, and it's a move. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I have a response. I'd like to take a moment to respond to what Mr. David Blackwell submitted to my planning commission on 6/23. I participated in the architectural review committee meeting. And there we heard the report for this proposed 10-story site affordable project adjacent to Bay Hill. As an architectural review committee, we were asked by staff to share our feedback. Specifically, our staff said staff recommends that architectural review committee provide feedback and additional input in the architectural elements of the proposal. In our meeting, we did exactly that. We received your presentation carefully. We provided creative, thoughtful, same time, of the very consistent influence we might be able to help project. By being so limited, we still tried to share feedback as best we were able, for the benefit of the project and the community. You characterized our comments as subjective and related to the proper scope of review. And sir, I disrespectfully disagree. I take exception to insulting substance and tenor. Further, characterizing this as the reason why state law is critical to assess the state's housing crisis is both inaccurate and false. While we are not professional developers, planners, lawyers, policymakers, we are not naive about the state of the housing crisis environment. I think you'll find that there's important support for more denser and more housing projects among the communities here. We are also soberly aware of the legal needs of the state to approve your project just as you please. However, the ARC meeting, as well as this meeting, provides us an opportunity to try to share our feedback and to encourage a creative and feasible approach to this project while also meeting state law. The ARC meeting feedback was met with patronizing responses, flexibility without everything. It does not share a spirit of cooperation or understanding. I think the critical feedback should have surprised you or your team. Didn't criticize the state such as height, floors, density, light, and the other views you've taken with the home project. We are however, the committee, as well as many members of the public, expressed that this project, despite staff's best efforts, lacks some architectural interest and integrity, and also lacks some important elements that provide quality of life to the people who live inside this building. These include access to shared outdoor space, any private outdoor space, or noise reduction through architectural articulation, or screening from busy streets nearby. We tried to work on these lacking elements by making creative suggestions. We actually consider other solutions that would not infringe on state law or feasibility. We don't seem to have received a very significant response in those regards. So the state sees to it that you do not have to respond to our feedback. The state essentially allows you to build what you like. But if we don't ask you, if we don't come to you with our feedback that's asked for by staff, we're going to stand a chance at any change. And so that's why we have these meetings, and so that our public can also come and share them. So you may not respond to any of this stuff, but it's important for us to say it, and it's for the benefit of the community and this building. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? And, I would just like to say I wasn't at the ARC meeting, but, I agree with Mr. Letton. It's our job to make comments and suggest possible improvements to the project. Your design team can say no. Sounds like they haven't. But we're supposed to express our opinion and suggest ways that this project could be. Your financial interests, your desire to bring housing to people, we all want everyone to win here, including the residents of San Bruno, to have something that, you know, in some aspects does look prison-like. You know, bringing some color, things like that. These are very low-cost requests to make the building interesting and aesthetically pleasing. So, you know, in reading the letter, it was very aggressive. And the responses are kind of non-responses. Again, I wasn't at the meeting, but I think you know, that what she said, I agree with her 100%. That said, I think it's a good project. I like tall buildings. I think the building heights that we have in the city should be increased. But I would like to see some improvements on the exterior, especially the French windows. They look very 70s Park Merced-ish to me. The main frontage on the street looks okay with the bands. Some color would be great, or material changes. And I assume that our department has looked at the traffic impacts of entering and exiting the building. I would be concerned that if there's going to be backups, like San Bruno, for a gate to open. And those are exit only type of entry or openings to the parking structure, and the central portion between the two buildings is where cars enter. So those are my comments. happy to see this project. I think it with changes you have to consider.
Question for the city, if we consider some of the aesthetic changes and have it go back and you come back, what does that do to the timeline of Most Central Project?
That was I would say significant time, particularly because of the time of the year that we're in, probably more back in January, people use. That's why the alternative was, that was crafted was to give some level of direction if there is interest in changes, enough for us to work with the applicant, with the clear intent that, we do not want to increase costs of the project. We do not want to stall the project. But if the commission is interested, we want to find ways to make affordable improvements. That's why we recommended that. If the applicant would prefer a little more certainty of dates and come back to a meeting, or if the planning commission wants to just directly say, do this specifically, so that there is no uncertainty. All of those are on the table.
So, I've been trying to listen patiently. I don't want to decide of what's important here. I really like Mia's comment. I don't even know you, but I really like your comment. We need, this is probably the most exciting, believe it or not, most exciting thing that I've come to the planning commission for. Talking about 100% affordable, much needed housing. Many of shout here and Tracy and stuff. So excited about this. And I don't get aesthetics. We want the project to. So into the attorney. Cities. Aesthetic changes. Thank you. We don't see. I think any option you take that solves something delay, cost that is on budget. If you enjoy being sued, that would be a positive thing. I mean, unless there's really strong objection on any or to approve review from AO 22-010 based on my conditions of approval 1 to 2 further modifications. And I'm happy to second.
So this is without this added condition that they work with staff without our involvement. Yeah, I am not inclined to require anything of them because I don't think the city should put itself through what it experienced. No part of it.
Yeah. Staff. You feel that, they would be beneficial to the project if you did have some input to any changes. Just be, so. Yeah.
Correctly quantify the percentage that I think we could improve the project with this. I would say probably more than 9%. So if we get belief in this needs, this is something that you think is in good shape as it is, then I would lean towards follow staff recommendation, which does not include asking for changes. If you think it has to have improvements, and even a 5% improvement is something, that's really, we don't want to overcommit, because the bones of the building are still gonna look like this. We're gonna be talking about the color changes, and realistically, whatever we come up with, something will not fire. So it's not a case where this is gonna all of a sudden be embraced by people to this version. So if the commission feels strongly, I think you should put the condition in. If the commission is neutral, I think the commission should approve the staff recommendation without the addition.
My thought is, so to hear that it would be, even though it's only 5% is a lot in a huge project. And if you felt that it would be beneficial to the project, then I would say, yes, let's give you the direction to what would be important. However, if you feel that there was much you contribute to that, then really was just relying on the feedback.
Yeah, I agree. If the commission wants, I think, then I think that the condition works. And if you either think the incremental proof is not worth it, or if the incremental proof is not necessary, then I would lean to giving it without the added condition.
Thank you.
I'll just say, so my thoughts on this. I would really like, Keith and KTGY, their reputations on the line with any project they do, just to make it look nicer. I think our staff has better things to do right now. They're busy, and I don't want them to waste any time on this.
I don't want to see this delayed either. I personally, it'd be nice if the colors were a little bit different, but it is so substantial. You can't make it not look giant, and with the structure that it is, there's no way to make it not appear to be a behemoth. And I feel like if we did break up the massing with color, it might just look like lips. It's all a matter of taste, but personally, I would prefer not to. I don't think I'd like to see a color change at this point. And I wouldn't want to see the project held up because of it. And I think that the changes that we talked about it are very helpful. So I'm in support of adding housing, and yeah, I think I would support it as housing.
One more quick question for staff on the building height. We're considering the entire lot and treating these as one building rather than two separate buildings on the height limit. Is that what we're doing?
In my examination of the plans, each building has its own height measurement, and it's kind of 90 feet. The average is at the 102. That means depending on the slope, the shortest part of the building is around 93. And I believe that the architect said the highest end, it's 111.
Right.
Each building does that.
I just want to, again, my concern is about adding stuff on the roof, a roof screen that's going to make it even look, it's going to detract from the look. Those roof screens so I just want to make sure that it does go to building, and whatnot, that they're looking at these things and making sure that they're in compliance, that 100. So, yeah, but see this project able to support it. It would be nice if they were open to some aesthetic approaches. Yeah. Please.
Chair Madden,
Aye.
Vice Chair Geraldo.
Aye.
Commissioner Biassatti.
Aye.
Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Coon.
Aye.
Commissioner Libby. Motion passes.
Thank you. Not seeing any commission, so we'll just keep going. Yeah, it's possible for sure. Let's do a 5-minute break.
Yeah, they're surprised they have no big. Yeah, I mean, now I think small towns. Yes. Next year. Yeah. Just, you know, she don't make measure. It's very nice. It's your face, about space. And stories to be. It was something you had
Okay, we're gonna move on. We're on item 7B, 1015 San Mateo Avenue, use permit 23-012. Do we have a staff presentation?
Yes, we do. Let me just get the. Good evening, planning commission. I will be presenting on 1015 San Mateo Avenue, who is requesting a use permit UP 23-012 to allow auto-related use at 1015 San Mateo Avenue. And the proposed business is 1015 Brass. And as we see here in the industrial district, auto-related uses are conditionally permitted, which is the reason we're here tonight. So the subject property measures 5,362 square feet and currently consists of a two-story vacant light manufacturing building. The property is located on the corner of San Mateo Avenue and Hermosa Street in the San Bruno Park 5th Edition subdivision. And it has a floor area of 3,465 square feet. The previous occupant was a glass manufacturing business, but they moved out in 2020, so it's been vacant since. And now we have a new host applicant. So here we have the subject subject property photos. To the left, we see the exterior of the building from the corner of Hermosa Street and San Mateo Avenue, and also from Hermosa Street where we see the paved area, the gate and the fence. The photos to the right show the first floor and the second floor. The surrounding properties are primarily industrial land uses, so they share similar design and businesses. So here we see most of our auto repair shops as well. Next few slides, see more auto repair, one that was recently by the commission, which is a towing yard at 1018. And to the bottom left corner, we see the 1000 San Mateo Avenue, which is soon that Amazon currently. So the proposed project is a land use conversion from light manufacturing to related, specifically auto detailing. The business will be 1015 Wraps, and they specialize in comprehensive auto detailing services with a primary focus in auto wrap application and window tint application. For those who are unfamiliar with auto wrapping, this is the process that involves the car, the original paint, partially or entirely with vinyl film, decal wrap to alter its appearance, so it gives clients flexibility to their cars. And then for window tinting, it's a translucent or transparent film that's applied to the windows of the vehicle to serve many purposes such as their control or just privacy. So the proposed business 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Office staff of 3 employees, and there will be no physical alterations to the building. They're just planned and starting operation. So looking at the site plan in blue, we have the existing building footprint. In green, the existing landscaping area. In light gray, we have the existing paved off-street parking area, which can house 5 cars parked in tandem. Moving on to the proposed ground floor plan, this is where they will be conducting most of their auto wrapping and window tinting. So in blue, we have the workshop area, which has service space for 5 cars. So considering the 5 cars on the paved parking area and these here, they offer 10 off-street parking spaces. In light blue, we see the office space and the reception area as well. So these are both work area, the office, and the reception area. Moving to the second story, it will remain untouched. This is primarily going to be used for storage. There's 3 storage rooms. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and here we see both of the existing storage area. So looking at the staff report at attachment number 1, we have 20 conditions of approval. And I want to point out the notable conditions, starting with number 7, which requires that the applicant apply for a sign permit if they are proposing new signage, since they're a new business, I'm trying to promote their business. So once they give us that design, they're gonna have to go through the sign review process with the planning division. For 8 is the applicant shall not utilize on-street parking. The industrial district is known to have a lot of cars parked on the street and parking issues, so we that they only accept customers and vehicles that they could serve inside their service bays, but temporarily park in parking area side. There are going to be vehicles staying overnight. They're going to be Number 9 is all activities associated with business, such as auto wrapping, window tinting, shall be carried out inside the building. No window tinting shall be. Number 10 is auto wrapping, including cleaning is prohibited, so this is specific to this wrapping. Moving forward, number 15 is the washing of the vehicles in the building. At most street side of the building is prohibited. The reason for this is storm water treatment concerns. We don't want people to the street, so we are limited to using spray bottles and cleaning cloths to prep the vehicles. Number 14 is the rolling gate on such street shall remain open during business hours. This could prevent backup issues on such street. And lastly, this is number 20 from Public Works. They identified that the gate on such street is located in the public right of way. That can relocate the fence to be at the property line, which is 2 feet from the back edge of the sidewalk. But with that, staff has 3 findings, and that the nature of the business requires a clean and dust-free environment to properly wrap and tint the vehicles, so it will not create any issues inside the building, such as noise generation, odor generation. So we find that detrimental to health and safety of the neighborhood. Second, the operation of auto wrapping and window tinting will not be injurious to the roofs in the neighborhood if they comply with conditions of as they stated in their business description. And lastly, since this is in the industrial zoning district, it's consistent with what's allowed. So with that, staff recommends use permit UP 23-012 based on findings 1, 2, 33 and conditions of 1, 20. And the next steps, planning commission is the final approval. So standard procedure would be the 10-day appeal period. And if it is approved, then appeals are received, the applicant will then be required to apply for a business license application. And that process includes the business compliance permit, where buyer and building must inspect the building before it's operated. That's it from my presentation. William is and for the business, so you have regarding this business operation here as well.
Great, thank you. Anyone with additional questions? Question for city staff on the on-street number 8, shall not utilize on-street parking.
what's the thought process behind that? Because I'm familiar with that area and I'm under the assumption that all of the businesses put cars on the street. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing, but is that something that is starting to enforce with this business, or is there enforcement of vehicles? Because everything the cars that I think would be more streets, so I'm just curious. So correct. And secondly, for the business owner, just for this, I didn't see. To see if you can't park on the street, and given that you can. Give your day to do itself, good day or a full servicing and.
So let me address the first question and then William, you can second. So the reason behind condition number 8 is staff has received multiple complaints about the industrial district, people utilizing parking, storing cars, or even cars that are not fully functional. You see some that don't even have hoods or are still midway through their repair. So staff's efforts for any land use conversion moving forward is to condition them to only use the off-street parking they could offer. So if they need to temporarily park, to overnight storage, to get.
Good evening, my name is William. So we anticipate to wrap about 10 to 15 cars a month. It typically takes me about 5 days to wrap a single car. For window tint, it will probably take me up to 3 to 6 hours, depending on different cars. Like Tesla Model 3, it'll probably take me all day because the window in the back is huge. So, other than that, so I'm anticipating maybe 10 to 15 PPF or wrap customers, and maybe 2 window a month, and maybe 2 window tint a day. And I'll be open about 5 days. Thank you. Thank you.
I have questions for you. I'm excited about your business. I'm just curious about this as well. Questions. Will you be doing printing on site?
Yes.
Okay, and I understand that sometimes the printers are solvent based. Are you just solvent based?
No, so I am not printing any design. I'm printing out the shape of the car. So it's really just a roll of vinyl wrap, and I have a plotter, and I'll print out like a panel. And it comes colored already.
I see.
And mainly my business would be PPF. So it's the same thing as wrapping, but it's just paint protection film. So it doesn't have color. So there's only 2 kinds, stealth or clear. So it's basically clear drawing the whole car.
So you're mostly like just changing the color instead of like putting out a design and.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then, and you're okay with washing cars off site, as you go to like a car wash and then spot cleaning?
So with our business, I don't really need to wash the car after, because it's a wrap, right? So after you wrap it, we just need to spray it down with, don't laugh, but baby shampoo. Yeah, baby shampoo and water, and just wipe it dry, because our PPF film have a ceramic coating on it already. So when water touches the car, it just slides.
Oh. I'm looking forward to seeing your full sign. I'm sure it'll be very nice.
I actually do have one ready. I didn't know until today that I have to present it, so I will submit it.
We didn't see it till Friday, but yeah. Well,
It's really cool. It's colorful.
good luck.
Thank you.
community. What are the, you're applying 10-6 for working hours. And, now is that working hours meaning public can see you or that you're actually starting your visit at 10 o'clock, your office, people can But just rephrase it. I'm trying to give you more opportunity to, at this particular time, that if you want longer visits hours, it's a good time to do it, so you don't have to stop. There could be a time that you are so busy that you could say, I'd like to have 7 to 7. And this is a good time to do it. It's not an unreasonable.
Okay.
So, or to go back to staff, just to be sure there's, there are any. It's down. So, but this is a good time because as you get busier, you're going to have different needs. Want to be supportive.
Thank you. Yeah, if I could do that, that'd be great. I personally live in Brentwood, so I hate the morning traffic. So that's why I told Alicio probably won't bring at 10 because I'm trying not to be here before that. But opening a little later would be great because again, our staff's can stay a little later. That would be great. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at 8, I can go home without traffic. Usually it takes me 2 hours from here to get home with traffic.
Except day to day. Manual. Correct, but it's on record and then there's no one to report it, right? Hours, not likely, but that's happened. And this gives you the opportunity to,
Yeah, so how do I request?
I will make a recommendation. Thank you.
Can we put on the mirror page of the condition?
It's not, but it's in the page. There's 2 of 13.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is on your description.
Yeah.
And staff report. It's not listed as a condition of just because we wanted to offer flexibility to extend their hours if need be.
So let me understand. So let me just understand, because I was 45 years since that really hours were a huge issue. It wasn't a condition. It was the record. And so if it's on the condition, then they have flexibility to open and close, whatever they choose.
I believe that's my understanding of the universe, but well,
If that's the case, then I can pull back.
fundamentally, there's the limit on hours would be just like standards, like the existing, creating a public nuisance.
So, is that correct?
Yeah, if there's, any flags or violation, we go straight to the conditions of approval. And if they're, and typically, we only put the hour restriction for, make that recommendation for use permits for, bars and other types of uses, as Commissioner Harden said, where there was the potential for a public nuisance, where a daytime business, there isn't that.
I know. That, so it's good. Thank you.
Okay. Speakers. Close. Public comment. Okay, does anyone like to make further comments or a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve, UP 23-012. What contains about 1 through 3. And. That's it. Conditions are 1 through 3.
I'll say. We take all our roll call over.
Chair Madden. Vice Chair Geraldo. Commissioner Biassadi.
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson. Aye. Commissioner Coon.
Aye.
Commissioner Levine. Aye. Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 7C 2741 Plymouth Way. And AR 23-012 and UP 23-011. Do we have a staff presentation on this?
Hello again, I will be presenting on item 7C, which is for 2741 Plymouth Way. So, where did I switch it? Okay, and as was mentioned, this is for architectural review permit AR 23-012 and use permit UP 23-009. It's a request for permit to allow residential addition that will exceed, will increase the total floor area to be more than 3,000 square feet. And a use permit to allow residential addition that will exceed both the floor area lot coverage limitations per section 12-230. So the subject property measures 5,000 square feet and currently consists of a 1-story single-family home with an attached 2-car garage. It is 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and it is located in the R1 zoning district, specifically in Plymouth Way, between Claremont Drive and Vermont Way in the Crestmore Park #2 subdivision. So here we see the subject property, the appearance from the street, the appearance from behind the 6-foot front fence, the 5-foot setbacks, and the 9-foot 5-inch rear setback. Here we also see the existing first floor deck on the property. Moving forward to the surrounding properties, we see that these are primarily single-family homes since we're in the R1 zoning district, and they were built around the same time period, so they share similar size and height. We do see the presence of 2-story homes, one directly across the street, and there are 5 others on Plymouth Way. So the proposed project is a 963 square foot 2nd-story addition. In blue, we see the existing footprint of the 1-story home, as well as the deck highlighted in the dashed lines. In green, we see the location of the proposed 2nd-story addition, as well as the 2nd-story deck. So this table here shows the R1 development standards, such as floor area, lot coverage, impervious surface area, landscape area, and height. In the orange column, we see the existing conditions of the subject property. Now in green, we see the proposed conditions for the 963 square foot addition. So I just want to highlight why this requires a use permit. Reason number one is it will exceed the floor area limit of 2,750 by 319 square feet. And the second reason, it surpasses the lot coverage limit by 100 square feet. As we see here, the max is 200. Now in blue, it highlights the need for the architectural review permit because it will exceed 3,000 square feet by 69 square feet. So this will they're ultimately proposing the floor area ratio of 0.6138. I just rounded it up to 0.6236. So moving on to, actually before I move on, one thing I want to cover here is the landscaping area. The proposed plan will increase the landscaping area because the subject property currently does not meet the impervious maximum impervious area of 80%. They're currently at 82.8. So with the increase of landscaping, the impervious area will decrease 70%. And as for that, the average height of the addition will be at 6 feet 2 inches. Now, to the elevations, we'll start with the front. So the home needs to meet the residential design guidelines, specifically the daylight plane or offer facade articulation. Luckily, the applicant is proposing both, and I will cover that in these next few slides. So starting with daylight plane. In green, we see the addition, and in yellow, we see the daylight plane that is measured from 12 feet height, measured out a 45-degree angle. It's below the daylight plane. They also offer facade articulation. So step backs to the 10 feet from the property line, and to the right 8 inches. Another technique that the residential design guidelines states is the use of a hip roof to minimize the visual impacts of a second story addition. Here, you'll see that they design. Moving to the rear elevation, which is on a lower grade. Even though it's on slightly lower grade, it will still meet the daylight plane, offer the facade articulation step outs. Now to the east elevation, which is the side, similarly, we see it meets the daylight plane. And here we have a more substantial front step back. It will be located 48 feet from the front. And at the rear, the existing building doesn't meet the 10-foot setback, but this second story addition will meet the 10 setback since they're 13 distance to the rear. And the same applies here for this elevation. Either daylight plane, side elevation. So to cover the proposed floor plans, we first see the first floor, which will house the 2-car garage, the kitchen, the dining room, living room, office, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and the new staircase to access the second story. Now, we are seeing the second floor, which will house the family/game room with the wet bar, half bathroom, master bedroom with the in-suite bathroom, laundry facilities, walk-in closet, and the second story deck. As mentioned earlier, they are increasing the landscaping on the property, so I just wanted to highlight what these landscaping areas will be proposed. So with that, staff has 6 findings. We find that the project complies with the R1 setback, height, and landscaping requirement. even though it's going to exceed the lot coverage and floor area. It aligns with the general plan by design principles of the San Bruno residential design guidelines and the existing character of the neighborhood. Lastly, it will not be detrimental to the health, safety, privacy, and solar access. So with these 6 findings, staff is recommending that the planning commission approve both permits. Some back 136 and conditions of approval 1. And the next steps will be a 10-day appeal period, and the applicant will have 2 years to apply for a building permit to start construction from the date of approval. That's it for.
Thank you. Is there a representative from the architect?
They do not have a presentation, but they are on Zoom to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Just curious for staff, for the rear deck, the elevated deck, were there any privacy concerns or was it set back from the neighbors that it intrusion?
Yes, it does meet the setback standard of the municipal code. Our muni code states that they could be 4 feet from the rear property line. They're offering 13 feet, so.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any other comments? Okay. By affirmation, I function close for me. Thank you. Okay, any comments or motions? I'd like to make a motion to AO 23-012 and the use permit UP 23-069 based on findings 1 through 6 and conditions of approval 1. Okay, let me take a roll call, please, in a second.
Chairman,
Aye.
Commissioner Beasley, Commissioner Wood, Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner
Aye.
Singh, Motion passes affirmative.
Thank you. Moving eight, along is items from staff. We need some ARC volunteers. Okay, great. Consent.
What's the date?
It would be the 14th, although we are anticipating canceling that meeting at all. But if I can at least get names, that'd be great. I'm at deadline the next day, so I'm not. Okay. Yep, 14th. Yeah, okay, great. And like I said, we do not have any applications for that meeting, which we would have by now. So I think it's just canceled, but thank you in case something comes up. We have your three names. Okay, thank you. Attendance, comments from members. Do you have any comments?
So, I guess it's like almost a private meeting now, right? On this 840, they clearly used a loophole to get as many units as possible. How do we close that loophole? What's the process here? Can you help us get that started?
It's a very,
Sorry, do I need to go in more? I mean, state law. Let me go into a little bit of detail here. So I think what happened is that because we didn't have any either units per acre or any FAR density, they were able to go underground for the base design, for the base study. And pretty much offer.
Only, the underground parking was to meet the parking requirement for.
Right. And, right, and so in my mind, you know, this is really going outside the, you know, the vision, what there was. There could have never have been a 190 unit project built on the site, right? That's it. It's totally infeasible. And so my thought is that, you know, my argument is that, they found a loophole here to have a base study based on a infeasible project. Something that would, I think that's a loophole. And then my question is, maybe there needs to be some deliberation. Do we want to, first question, what would the process be? Because I would like to propose that, no.
I'll just. Low on spec. There's two ways that jurisdictions. Density, so there specify the density, and then there's certain. Under density bonus law. To the. There, and there's. So it's a trigger for. The density can be.
So you're offering a couple solutions, it's great, in terms of, getting this to the process. Is this all with city council? Is there anything that we should be doing? The planning commission, or should we take this down the road, send a letter?
It's not certainly nothing you need to do, because I mean, one of the things that the city, you know, we need to do is adopt objective design standards, and then these then, you know, need to become ministerial. So should not see them. The challenge, you know, with the density slot is that because the developers are allowed concessions and it's affordable, you know, there's, even if you have good objective design standards, they can still be requested to be waived. Density is challenging, and HCD through our housing element, we have established, you know, in our sites inventory, sites we feel will be developed, and we've used, you know, a density that we feel is realistic based on other projects. But that's not to say that someone couldn't come in for one of those sites in the housing element and propose a density bonus on top of it. Again, we have no control over the density bonuses.
Then I'll just close this comment with, asking my fellow council members to help me send a letter to the city council, alerting them of this potential loophole that takes the control out of the city's hands, and asking them to take some action. Thank you.
Any other comments? My only comment is, can we get some microphones that work? The ones that we use at the joint sessions, with the buttons. I know it might take a little bit more of your time to set up, but it's frustrating when, you know, they claim they can't hear us, and it's. Yeah, they probably can't. I don't understand that. I don't know if it's this machine or whatever is picking up the audio in here, but. Maybe it'll be improved, because it's been frustrating. Only comment.
And remember,
in the Department of how cities are limited by state law, there is an upcoming seminar on implementation of AB 1633, which is like use large things. Wednesday, there's something, I believe I sent the link to you. It is mainly intended actually for city staffs. And discussion group. Both interested in learning more about a new thing that we use some sort of ordinance for in a year or so. Station
Great, thank you. Okay, I think we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.